Welcome back to day 3 of the 2020 Project Play Summit. In this hour, explore ways to grow the human and technology capacity of community-based providers of sports programs. We recognize this need in our Call for Leadership platform for action. It's one of the 4 pillars of opportunity. But at the end of the day, it's important to remember what we're trying to achieve here: to help children fall in love with sports, to find joy in sports, because that joy will make them athletes for life. Who knows, maybe they'll even make a living in sports. With that, I'd like to bring in Emily Stets of our Sports and Society team to interview one of the most beloved athletes in all of American sports, U.S. national soccer team star, Alex Morgan.
Thanks, Tom, and thank you, Alex, so much for having this conversation with us. So what I'd love to talk to you about is to go back to the beginning, and if you could think back to when you first got into soccer, what started you playing?
My older sisters played sports, and I obviously was just carried around to all of their games, their soccer games, their softball games, and everything. And so starting when I was like 2 or 3 years old, I obviously just had like a natural gravitation towards sports because of that. I always wanted to be just like my older sisters, and so I wanted to do whatever sports they were doing. I wanted to try to like play with them, even though they're 4 and 6 years older than me. So I think it was just like that young competitiveness in me that really came out from a young age. But I think like when I really started playing sports at around 5 or 6 years old, it was really just like the friendships that I created with like some of my teammates on the team. It was the fact that, you know, it was like such a fun outlet for me because, you know, I loved school, but there was things that school couldn't teach you that sports did.
You also started playing rec soccer with AYSO and stayed in that environment for a long time and didn't actually move to club soccer until you were about 13 or 14. So why did you stay with AYSO for so long, and what was the experience like with your teammates and your coaches?
And one of the biggest reasons was that I loved playing all different sports, and I didn't want to narrow it down to one sport and feel like they say burnt out too early. I felt like soccer was like so fun for me, and it was clearly my number one sport above like softball and track and basketball and volleyball, like all the other sports that I played. But I still wanted to play those other sports. I still didn't feel like I wanted to commit to just one sport. I was only 10, 12 years old, and I wasn't ready to make that next step. And my parents never really forced me to do that. My dad was my coach for a lot of my teams, and that was really fun for me. You know, we got to like go around the city and pick up a lot of my teammates whose parents weren't able to take them to soccer practice. And so that was like part of the experience. It wasn't just like on the soccer field doing drills and scoring goals. You know, it was like hanging out with my teammates outside of soccer practice, going to get ice cream after practice, doing those little things that was like that all-in package. And I felt like around the age of 13, 14, I was ready to make that next step.
You're talking about, as a young person, being able to engage in multi-sport play a lot of different sports, and get to build some of those life skills through soccer like you were talking about. And it sounds like the AYSO experience was that an environment where you were able to have a lot of those different experiences and explore all of that?
Yeah, I felt like there was, you know, 2 levels to AYSO. There was the normal season, and then there was like a spring select. And so you had the normal season, and the spring select was kind of like the top players from each team really got together to play like a couple extra games. And so I kind of got the best of both worlds, but I definitely felt like when I got to practice, you know, it wasn't all about like competition. It wasn't about like me competing for a spot on the field or anything. It was like we all like took turns bringing snacks to practice to just like share with everyone. We all kind of just like pitched in on the whole like team camaraderie. I thought that going to club soccer would take like the fun out of it. And this was a way for me to like continue that until I was ready to like dedicate more time and I guess become more serious per se. But that was like the path for me. And I always encourage multi-sports, and I always encourage, really being courageous with like what you want to do, even though it's not the norm. And everyone back then like made fun of the path that I took because it was something that was unorthodox, and it meant that I was maybe late to the game going to youth club soccer, or starting a little later than some people. But at the same time, like if you look where I am today, it doesn't have to do with like making all the right steps along the way. It just has to do with like that self-belief, that confidence, making sure that like you're enjoying yourself and like continuing to grow the passion for what you want to do in life. And for me, that's always been to play sports.
So thinking about the youth sports system in general, how do you think more coaches can continue to make sports fun for kids, no matter what they're playing, when they're younger?
I mean, I think that a lot of times, like in practice, a way that you can make things fun is like less competition within each other, within the team, and more like working together towards like a greater goal. Obviously, you're going to be playing like 5v5 or 11v11. You're going to be wanting to prepare for a weekend's game. But I think like as much as you can, like working together, like promoting working together, that would be like the most important thing for me, because on a weekend, like weekend games come along and you want to make sure that you stick together regardless of a win, loss, or tie, and knowing that regardless of that result, like you should feel like proud of the work you put in. And I think that that's something that like my dad instilled in me, and that's something that I was able to also get from my club coaches once I did transition to youth club, that I think a lot of youth players don't really get. They don't really get that confidence from themselves and from others, from their teammates, from their coaches. So that's like one side of it. But also I think just like rewarding players for not only like good play on the field, but having a good mentality, like being a good teammate, doing things that help you become like the complete player, because you're not a complete player if you play the best soccer. That's not, there were so many girls growing up that were so much better than me at soccer, but I wanted it more. I felt like I had a great support system. I was a good team player. I was coachable. Like I had like all of the things that I needed to continue to grow as a player. And that's why I'm here today.
And how do you think that your youth sport experience contributed to that work ethic and the career that you've now built for yourself?
I always encourage kids to play multiple sports because of that exact reason. I feel like not narrowing it down to soccer too soon helped me learn so many different skills, and it helped me with time management. It helped me with just learning different skill sets, different mentalities, and I mostly did team sports. I did a couple individual sports like in track and cross country, but I love just like that team camaraderie. And I feel like that was so important to my youth. And that's like one of the biggest things I'm so grateful for, is like not narrowing it down to just soccer. Even today, when this is what I do every single day is play soccer. I don't wish that I had one more day when I was a kid, because I was so happy with the path that I had chosen in playing so many different sports and learning to love like different things. And when I got to soccer practice, actually loving it every single time, rather than saying, oh, another soccer practice. Like I've already had 3 of these today. Like I'm ready to be done with it. I never have like had that sort of mindset.
Yeah, you have a really unique perspective about not only from your own youth sport experience, but also about what the field should look like. And you've used a lot of your platforms and partnerships to try to communicate with young people, including one of the series that you're writing for middle schoolers called The Kicks, which features a lot of themes that you've talked about that have been part of your youth sport experience, like friendship and leadership and using soccer to help translate all of that. So what inspired you to write those books, and why the focus on middle schoolers?
So yeah, I have 11 books out so far in the Kick series, and I started this, I want to say almost 10 years ago, or maybe 8 years ago. So it's crazy to just see just how many books are out there and just how many girls have got their hands on it and are excited about it. And that's what I intended for all along. I wanted it to be towards like middle schoolers, to be towards like that 12 to 14 age range, because I noticed even from when I was that age that a lot of my friends were dropping out of sports at that age because of either, focusing more on, the social, like their social life or other things or maybe just the fact that they didn't have that like self-belief or that confidence. And as much as sport gives you that, I feel like girls have found themselves dropping out of sports like more than boys, unfortunately. And having experienced that with a lot of my friends, I wanted to put out books towards those ages where they can feel like they were able to have that like self-confidence to continue playing sports if that's what they felt like they were lacking, if they feel like they didn't belong. I wanted to show them just how much sports can give you and how much you can learn about yourself with sport.
So as you look ahead towards training for Tokyo, which is now in 2021, and also in your new journey with the Spurs and getting back to soccer in general and raising Charlie, what do you want her experience and other young kids' experience with sports and activity to look like when you think about the future, and if and how and in what ways kids are going to keep playing sports?
Yeah, well, having my experience like mostly with soccer, I see how the system is set up now, and I think it could be so much better, because I think that kids are forced into one sport at too much of a young age, and I think that the travel of youth sports is just crazy. There's so much great competition within your own state, within your own county. It's really unnecessary to have like so much travel across states. And, as much as that means more time commitment for the kids, that means a lot of time commitment for parents too. That means also a financial burden as well. So, what I hope to see in the future, especially as Charlie starts to grow a little and start in sports, which I'm not going to push her into it, but I have a feeling that she'll naturally gravitate toward you to choose what she wants to do and how often she wants to do it. I don't want to force her into anything that will really suck the fun out of it.
And speaking of fun, we've heard that you've also partnered with GoGo Squeeze for their campaign, which is entitled Fun Comes First, also in collaboration with Laureus USA and US Soccer. And of course, this campaign is going to be focused on bringing the fun back into youth sports and also addressing some of those barriers to participation that you talked about, including resources and time and things that are going to persist long after the pandemic is done. So can you share a little bit why you're excited to be part of this campaign and what's the message you really want kids to hear?
Yeah, well, I absolutely loved partnering with GoGo Squeeze for this campaign and moving forward. First of all, because as a new mom, I'm really excited about the products that GoGo Squeeze offers, and the fact that I will be having that not only in my soccer bag, but also in my diaper bag. So that is one part of it, but also the campaign in general is just so true to like who I am and what I stand for, in wanting kids to feel like they belong in sports, wanting kids to have the resources to be able to play sports from a young age and stay in sports as they grow up.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, Alex. So let's take a look at that campaign video.
Parents, we need to talk about something serious. Fun. Now we know it's hard for you to take us kids seriously. So we hired soccer superstar Alex Morgan to help us. Sports are awesome for lots of reasons. We get to make new friends, learn how to be good teammates. Sports give us skills for when we grow up. Plus, they're super fun. At least they're supposed to be. But lately, lots of kids are dropping out of sports. And the reason why is simple. With so much emphasis on competition, we're not having fun anymore. Now, with most youth leagues on hold because of the pandemic, we're worried many kids may never come back. We need more kids in sports, not less. That's why we're teaming up with GoGo Squeeze and US Soccer to help bring fun back to kids' sports and to keep kids playing. So come on, parents, we need your help too.
How was that?
Awesome, Alex.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ivan Girard, President and General Manager of GoGo Squeeze, and I am thrilled to be here today on behalf of the company as a supporting partner of the Project Play Summit. Many thanks to our partner, Alex Morgan, for those powerful words. We're extremely proud to be working with you on this initiative and sharing our mission to ensure youth sports remain fun and accessible to all kids. GoGo Squeeze is committed in making it easier for families to be healthier and happier every day through our partnerships with US Soccer and Alex Morgan. As part of that commitment, we share in the core belief what many of you tuning in here today know best, that youth sports are vital to improving kids' physical, social, and emotional well-being. And at the same time, we fully recognize that many of the barriers and factors that negatively impact kids' participation in youth sports have only intensified due to the pandemic. That's what drove us to launch our Fun Comes First initiative and partner with the Project Play Summit to help reimagine youth sports by improving the quality of community programs. We hope to inspire kids to stay in the game by reinforcing what's most important to them, fun. We know it is a crucial first step to provide immediate support to those on the front lines who deliver youth sports programs in our communities. That's why I'm excited to announce here today that GoGo Squeeze is teaming up with Omaze and Alex Morgan to give fans the chance to win a trip to watch the US women's national team take the field next summer in Tokyo. Most importantly, this is all in support of raising critical funds to fuel Larry's Sport for Good USA's efforts to ensure the safe return to play for hundreds of thousands of youth across the country. To help kick off the fundraising efforts, GoGo Squeeze will be contributing $50,000 to the cause. Please head to the omaze.com/GoGo Squeeze to learn more about how you can get involved. We know there is much more work to be done to strengthen the youth sports ecosystem in the United States. We recognize that it's not possible to keep kids in sports and improve the fun and overall quality of youth sports programs without the vital ingredients of qualified coaches. To that end, I'm honored to introduce our next panel, Building Human Capacity, an important exploration on emerging opportunities that can help build an army of qualified coaches who will deliver high-quality, low-cost community sports programming. Now, I am pleased to introduce our moderator and program officer from the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation, Malia Shea.
Great, so thank you everyone for joining us today from wherever you are tuning in from. Today's session is called Building Human Capacity. And my name is Malia Shea. I come from the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation. Today we're really talking about coaches. We know that coaches are a huge ingredient into really creating environments where kids can not just become better athletes, but really, more importantly, develop the social, emotional, and other life skills that they can take with them through life. So I'm joined today with 3 panelists who bring with them really great insights, expertise, and life experiences on what it really takes to recruit, train, and retain coaches. Nigel Harvey is the Executive Director of Cream Skills, Inc. in Wisconsin. Char Barnes is the sports office manager in the Columbus Recreation and Parks Department in Ohio. And then Todd is part of the Tennis for America program at the Junior Tennis Champion Center in Maryland. So we'd really like to start today by hearing a little bit more about what brought you each to coaching and working with kids through sports. So Ava, I think I'll turn it over to you first to share a little bit about that.
Sure. So again, my name is Ava Todd, and I am part of the first class of Tennis for America Fellows. Tennis for America is a new AmeriCorps program that was started by the Intercollegiate Tennis Association. And the goal of the program is to grow tennis, make it more accessible for everyone, and particularly to make it more accessible in underserved communities. And so we have 8 fellows spread out across the country who are all former college tennis players who have recently graduated from college and are now working at tennis centers to grow the capacity of the center and grow tennis in general.
So like she said, I'm Char Barnes. I work with the Columbus Recreation and Parks Department in Columbus, Ohio. So I was actually brought to youth sports. I was a rec kid, so I went from the library to the recreation pool to the recreation center every day for all my summers as a child. So it's kind of fitting that I found myself back here working for the same department that I enjoyed as a child. I had just moved back from Chicago and I needed a job, and I went up to my rec center to go visit my old center manager, and she's like, apply. And I applied, and I started working at Whetstone and started running soccer programming and teaching art classes, and just realized how important these community centers are to the kids in our community.
Yeah, again, my name is Nigel Harvey, Executive Director of Cream Skills, Inc. What brought me to youth sports, it was around like 2009 or whatever. I like to play in the park, play basketball with with the youth, the neighborhood youth. You know, I'm the oldest guy out there, you know, playing with the little guys. And so I noticed that the park started deteriorating. The culture was going in a negative direction. The rims were being ripped down. And so I decided to hold a little family community event for the neighborhood. And the main event was a basketball tournament. Okay. And this thing was just so successful. It brought out people in the neighborhood I've never seen before. And that kind of started me to, you know, get more engaged with the neighborhood youth. And I found a true passion for neighborhood youth. I always loved basketball, but for this experience and to see the difference that it made with the neighborhood youth, the next day I come out to the park and they're like asking, when are you going to do it again? When are you going to do it again? So from that point on, I just continued to do little basketball tournaments for the youth in the neighborhood. And eventually I just went to school for it. And one of my classmates noticed my passion at a community center. And he pretty much asked me to fulfill his position because he was being promoted. And from that point on, I continued in the youth field work. And from there, I've grown a strong desire for youth work.
Great. And I think I would really like to look, you know, turning more to the recruitment of coaches, right? I think we know that coaches can come from a lot of different backgrounds and serve different roles. And there's a lot of work that goes into recruiting volunteer coaches or hired coaches in these programs. So Nigel, I'd love to hear a little more about, I know your program recruits a range of volunteers, everything from coaches to mentors. Could you talk a little more about the strategies you use to attract volunteers and what you really look for in like a really great mentor or coach when you're doing that?
Well, really, that is a very great question because that's not easy to find. I really like to look for people who I see a strong passion for youth work, similar to mine. We have former players who've aged out of my league, I've recruited and became mentors, head coaches. So my main strategy is mainly focusing on the field of youth workers who already have the experience in youth work so that I don't have to really do much training on the basic understanding of youth work.
That's great. And I think that's a good segue, Ava. Nigel was talking a lot about how he draws from a pool of students and people he's worked with in past programs that have aged out. Would love to, hear a little more about the America program that you're a part of and how it engages college athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think national service is a great avenue for recruiting coaches, particularly recruiting former college athletes. I know when I graduated, it was a difficult transition because I was losing a big part of my identity, which was being a college athlete. And you've done that for 4 years and your career comes to an end. And then at the same time that that's happening, you're trying to figure out what kind of career you want for your future. And I know myself and a lot of my peers were still a little bit lost in that area and trying to figure out what exactly it was that we wanted to do, and felt like we had to have it all figured out, but we didn't. And so through a year of service that also relates back to the sport that you love and that you've played yourself and that has given so much to you, I think it really gives college athletes an opportunity to pass forward something that they were given, to stay connected to a sport in a different way. So rather than being the player, you're now being the coach. And it also gives you an opportunity to be employed, which is great.
I know a lot of the work that you've done is really thinking about the process of recruiting coaches, so centralizing it to make it more accessible for coaches, and also thinking about the diversity of sports that the rec department is offering, sports and rec department is offering. So could you talk to us a little more about the work you're doing to centralize processes through the youth sports office, and then also provide a variety of opportunities for coaches to participate in, and how that helps you in your recruitment?
Sure. So we used to do, every rec center used to run their own sports, which was really difficult, honestly, for probably the community, because there would be different rules, different uniforms, everything was different. And based on where you were in the city, your uniforms might look really nice, or you might just get a t-shirt. And just so we thought that just centralizing the office and centralizing that to the youth sports office was the best way to make sure that all kids in the city were getting the exact same experience, the same good quality of programming. And not to say that centers weren't doing a good job, but they were working with what they had, which is basically what Rec and Parks is. We work with what we've got. We do a really good job with not a lot. So by centralizing the office, we were able to make sure everybody was getting the exact same quality of programming, and we were able to do that by just drawing in on the knowledge and skills of the people that we've already got, which is great. We have a lot of dedicated employees that work in our department who are very passionate about youth sports, and so just getting their ideas, bouncing those ideas off of them, and just really working together as a team. And through centralizing that, it also gave our community one place to get all of the information they need for youth sports.
Nigel, you talked a lot about youth workers and that you look for folks with that background already. Would love your perspective on that, and maybe what are the types of training or supports you give to folks that maybe don't have a professional background in that space. But also would love to, I know you're a founding board member also of the Milwaukee Youth Sports Alliance, which is I believe you describe them as a justice league of youth workers and sports organizations that work together to make sure that all kids have access to these high quality experiences. So, just how has this organization really helped bring this type of training to organizations across your city, to make sure that, people working with youth in lots of different organizations have access. So we'd just love to hear more about how you're doing that and really the impact that you've seen from that.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that you would like to hear that, because a lot of people need to hear this. First and foremost, we emphasize the fact that you're a head coach / mentor. We don't blur the lines in between mentors and head coaches. You're a head coach, that means you're a mentor. So that's the mindset that we push off to any volunteer, even if it's just a volunteer not coaching. You're working with youth, so you're a mentor. So that's the first thing we set in place. With MISA provides a great training experience for new coaches with years of experience, because we really, like I said, we focus on the sports-based youth development, and we've been been having a great session, a coaches clinic session. We've been doing it for years. Actually, this would have been our 4th year during our coaches clinic in the fall. And it's a great experience for coach. It's a great experience for coaches. They get to learn different techniques, multiple techniques. I can't even really spill out how many things I've learned from this event, but I've attended every event since they started it. And it's a great opportunity for coaches to learn multiple techniques and also share strategies and communication techniques that some coaches are unaware of, because the mindset of most coaches is that they're just there to win. They're just there to win, go home. So with the MISA platform providing the sports-based youth development for coaches in the city, it's tremendous. It's tremendous and has a profound effect on the coaches, because the coaches understand that they're more than just a coach. So they really get the experience of learning how to become a better youth worker / mentor and have a stronger impact on the community.
I hear like a theme throughout a lot of these comments that you're making is really, it's like about the relationship, right? And it sounds like building that relationship is probably a huge component of, retaining coaches, retaining families, retaining kids in programs. And so, Char, I'd like to continue to kind of unpack like what you were just talking about, and, how has like the systems you put in place, or just like providing these supports to coaches and families, really helped, retain people in the system?
Well, it's always the saddest day when you see a 12-year-old go to 13 and you're like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose them because they're such a good leader on their team. So sometimes what we do is we just expand the age range. So we may not have offered something, and we have a lot of 12-year-olds that are like, well, we still want to play. It's like, well, looks like we're doing 13U now. You just kind of expand the age group if you need to. We also have try to reach out with those kids and have them help coach with current teams. We'll turn them into officials. So for soccer, a lot of our former soccer players end up being officials when they turn 14. Now they start with the little, the itty bitty kids, but it gives them a skill and they get paid. So it's also some of these kids' first jobs as well. The retention part, I think if we just continue to provide good programming, good quality programming, a space that is safe and a space that is fun, people will want to come back. We always make sure to keep our costs low, because we know not everybody can afford it. And if we continue to do that, I think our programs will continue to grow, which is always my hope, because that means that we're impacting the lives of more and more children who need that guidance and those programming to keep them busy and healthy and safe. So,
Ava, I think one perspective that you really bring is like the perspective of being a coach right now, and know that like the coach experience is also so important in addition to the youth experience, right? For that retention. So far, how do you think that this experience has really like shaped your perspective and how you might want to stay engaged, or even, on your future as you're thinking, after you're done with this program, what will you do? So would love to hear more about how this is shaping you as a person, and kind of how you are thinking about, staying involved with your communities going forward.
Yeah, I think the program has already had a big impact on me and my perspective in terms of what I want to do for a career. I think coming in, I knew that I might want tennis to be a big part of my professional life, but I'm not sure that I had considered coaching specifically as a career for me. But now that I'm doing it and it's such a big part of my job, I think I'm developing the confidence that it could be something that I want to do long term. What's cool about the program too, and the opportunities that I've had at the Junior Tennis Champion Center, is that we've been able to coach in pretty much every aspect of the sport. So I've coached kids as young as 3, but I've also gone up to 18 in all the different programs that they have. And so I might be able to find out, okay, I connect best with this subset, this age group, or this is an area where I really need to work on and kind of grow in those areas throughout my year in this program. So the diverse range of opportunities that I've been given within coaching, I think has been really helpful. And also we've gotten to work with a lot of coaches who have roles on the administrative side as well. So we work really closely with the director of tennis. And I think that's opened my eyes to areas of coaching that you don't always see, areas that are more behind the scenes, and that maybe that could be a career option as well of doing some more of the behind the scenes work and the scheduling and the things that have to happen to make the coaching happen.
That's really great. And I think you bring up one last really good topic for us to just maybe share some thoughts on is, who are the coaches? I think are so important, and for kids to see different people being a coach, right? And I think that maybe not everyone views themselves as someone that could be a coach, right? So it might take a little bit of shifting of someone seeing themselves as, oh, I can do this. So Char, is this something that you see in your work, and is there any efforts in your work where kind of expanding who can be a coach? Is it a mom or a dad, or is it somebody who may not have been a college athlete but still can really connect well with young people? So how do you think about that, and what does that look like in your work?
Sure. So we get a lot of moms and dads, which is fantastic, because once again, we like to bring the family and community into our programs. We have so many parents who are like, okay, I'll do it, but I have no idea what I'm doing, and the beautiful thing is that we partner with some good organizations that actually give you curriculum. So you can't really go wrong. They give you step by step, day by day. So if you've got 4 and 5-year-olds playing soccer and you've never played a day in your life, but your child wants to play, we have trainings and curriculum with some of our partners, like through the U.S. Soccer Foundation. They have the Soccer for Success program. As a Black girl, I had, had I not had my first coach, my first major coach was a woman. And I think that's what made me comfortable. I was a swimmer, and seeing okay, here's this 22-year-old redheaded girl who is helping me learn how to swim. It was a big deal for me. And then, a lot of my coaches through all of my sports experiences have been women. And I think that made a big difference on how I view sports and women in femininity or whatever. It's just seeing someone there who can do something so well, and you're like, oh, well, if she can do it, so can I. And having Black female coaches, it's mind-blowing for me. It was oh, wow, look at her, because she looks like me. And making sure that we our coaches represent our community.
Nigel, and I would love to hear more, because from your perspective too, just you talked about how mentorship and that connection, a lot of the young people that you work with even view you as a father figure, right, is what you said. And so how does this play into the recruitment as well, and the connections that you build with your volunteers? How does this play into who you bring into your program to work with the young men in your program? So I'd love to hear about how you think about who are the coaches, and are they representative and can build those connections with the young people?
Okay, yeah. One thing I did fail to mention, my league is co-ed.
Oh, co-ed.
So we do have girls play in our league. It's probably one of the only leagues where it's co-ed. So we really like to make sure we stay diverse, not just on the player side, on the coaches side as well. We do have high school coaches. We have coaches that are not involved in sports at all. They're just great leaders, and they're great listeners. So there are a few things that I look for in recruiting coaches. I look for that passion for youth work. You got to really have that drive to really want to see a change in a young person's life. And not so much that huge ego to want to win, the whole trophy case thing. I just want to get more trophies in my case. That's not what we're looking for, even though we do encourage, our teams to win, our coaches to win, not for the aspect of gaining a plaque, but for the aspect of gaining the team building aspect of learning how to work together and completing a goal, for one common cause. So we're really into people who are into team leadership and into building character.
This has been so great. I feel like we've touched on so much, and I've really learned a lot about, coaches and, who can coach, how do you support coaches, and the really important role of coaches in the youth sports experience and really connecting with families. So thank you, Ava, Nigel, and Char, so much for, sharing a little bit about your work and experiences and perspectives. I think it's been really, really insightful and helpful. So thank you again.
Thanks, Malia, for that great conversation. And I want to welcome Dave Dupont and Alex Wu for our next conversation around building tech capacity. Before we get started, I want to invite each one of them to tell us a little bit about who they are and the great tech companies that they run. Dave, do you want to go first?
Sure, Jennifer. My name is Dave Dupont. I'm the CEO of TeamSnap. I founded the company 11 years ago, and the idea for the company came from my experience as a lacrosse coach and also as an executive in tech companies. As a lacrosse coach, I realized that there was an opportunity to make everything associated with communication and coordination around team sports much easier than what I was experiencing. So that's what we embarked upon 11 years ago. We've been successful since our founding and now can claim that 24 million people around the world, parents, players, coaches, and managers, have experienced TeamSnap.
Wow, that's amazing. In 11 years, that's incredible. And Alex, I know HomeCourt is a relatively new company to the scene, but can you tell us a little bit about HomeCourt?
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm on the founding team of it's a company called Next Team. We're a mobile artificial intelligence company. We're the makers of HomeCourt, and HomeCourt is the first app that we built with our mobile AI technology. And essentially what HomeCourt does is we use your phone's camera to track and chart all your different types of basketball activity, very much the same way maybe your Apple Watch measures your cycling and running activity. But we do that for basketball just with using your phone's camera. And we started in a little bit differently, like you said, Jen, just a couple of years ago that we launched. And a lot of that's because, technology, hardware and software has advanced so far that we could actually do some of the magical things we can do just using your phone's camera.
How has technology been able to streamline a lot of the challenges that many of our community-based organizations face in making sport more accessible to all?
Sure, Jennifer. So the initial problem that I saw when I was that coach 11 years ago was that coordination and communication to repeat what I said earlier was a mess. And I just wanted to make it easier. I realized, having been in the tech world for a while, that we could make it a lot easier. I validated the opportunity by talking to my peers. And I would usually say something like, so what's it like, just being organized for your kids' activities or for your sports activities? And every time I brought up the topic, I would hear this, oh, it's a mess. And you could argue that what we started off doing was simply making sure everyone on a team, everybody associated with a team, showed up at the right place at the right time with the right stuff. We're talking about a really simple task here, but it was taking an inordinate amount of time. And the technology we introduced and have improved upon, and there are other companies in the world who do some of the same things we do, that has already dramatically improved the experience of, again, those people, of people involved in sports, and the proof is in the pudding.
The advantage of the HomeCourt app is that it really extends the engagement that a youth athlete and their family can have with coaches. So what does that look like, and what's possible moving forward?
Yeah, so, at HomeCourt, we really think of technology, talk about accessibility. Innovation for us is really making technology as accessible as possible. That's where you see kind of the greatest benefits really come to play. Those tools accessible to as many people as possible. One of the things we certainly did during this pandemic, still around March, we're very much like an individual training experience. You can get like, content and coaching, experiences, training experience with our AI technology that helps you track and tell you how you're doing and how you're not. Very much like, again, your treadmill will or your Peloton would, but for basketball. So you can learn from people like Steve Nash or Stu Bird or JJ Redick about how they approach the game, but also get a assessment of how you're doing and track your progress and improvement. But really quickly, we also started to enable, more tools for teams. And because we realized that it takes a village to really develop a player. It's not just your individual work. You want to have the accountability from your coaches. You want to have the social connection and motivation from your peers. And we need to bring all those things together to really kind of, again, help a player really reach their potential. And so we launched a few different features this year, HomeCourt for Teams, just this last quarter to really help facilitate that and integrate those things together. And also working with TeamSnap, to Dave's point, creating those tools, communication is so important. A lot of the relationship is between a player and a coach and a player and their teams. And how do we help facilitate those things? We actually also launched integration with TeamSnap this year to make that integration even better. I think we all know that our communities don't think about app, they just think about how do I solve the problem that I have. And if we can make that easy as possible, that's part of our job. And so I really do think to answer your last point, the last question, a lot of these things you really need to, what the future is like really how to bring these things together even more tightly so that we can just create better experiences for our communities.
Other really critical issues that we're facing right now is concerns related to health and safety. And I know, Dave, that this has been, top of the mind for TeamSnap as you guys have thought about future integrations and really addressing the health and safety concerns that families are facing right now as they think about safe return to play. So can you tell us a little bit about what you guys have done and maybe even what's moving forward or what's planned for the future?
Sure. So we view our mission as taking the work out of play. And part of what people should be focused on right now in terms of work is making sure that as sports resume, they resume safely. So we have put a fair amount of resources into aiding that mission. One of the things we've been doing is simply reporting. We're the largest in terms of sports communication and management. We're the largest platform in the world, 24 million users. So we have a good feel based on what we see on our platform every day for the return to sports activity. So on our website, you can see an interactive map that shows the return to sports by sport, by location in North America, state or province, which in and of itself is healthy because administrators of organizations can look at that data and understand what are people doing in terms of the return to sports in other places or in my state or province. So that in and of itself is healthy. We also have introduced, and this happened back in August, what we call Health Check. Health Check is an automated and integrated COVID-19 screening tool.
I want to now turn to coaches because I know both your platforms really offer that one-stop shopping for coaches as well. So Alex, can you tell us a little bit about how coaches can use HomeCourt and specifically what trainings available to them through the platform?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that coaches have been using HomeCourt, and we launched HomeCourt for Teams just last quarter to again help create essentially what is like a Facebook group experience, but with a HomeCourt flair. And so there's a few different things that we enable. One is we can bring your teams together in one place on HomeCourt and allow them to do two things together: compete and connect. And I think when we talk to our community, that's at the core of why a lot of kids join sports. Certainly why I did. I want and why I joined team sports in particular, right? And not a more individual sport. Like I want to be part of a team, and I want to compete with them. But I also want to, and there's a big part of it, and the connection is really important. And I think what we heard from parents and coaches specifically during this time is like, my kids miss the competition, but they also really miss the connection.
Yeah, no question. And I think what I'm struck by the most, in both of you talking, is that it's very clear that this is not something that you can do alone, and that not only did Alex mention the TeamSnap HomeCourt integration, but it's clear that there's lots of other partners that you have in this space. And so, curious if you could just spend a minute or two talking about the power of those partnerships and what they've allowed you to do as a platform in terms of ensuring more access for more families to quality sport opportunities. Dave, why don't you start with that?
Yeah, I'll start off. And I didn't really go into this in detail. I just mentioned that I was in tech. But prior to TeamSnap, I was involved in the computer industry for many years. And one of the great successes of the computer industry is the collaboration. We call it co-opetition. In other words, companies were competing against each other, but they also collaborated. And there were standards around many of the aspects of the technology that allowed different companies to focus on different parts of a solution, but to ensure that things work together. So the technologies we enjoy today are significantly benefiting from these standards. Now, how does that apply? I'm kind of talking tech jargon here, but how does that apply to this world? Well, if I think of all the things that could make people's lives easier, if I think of all the value that we could provide folks involved in sports, guess what? It's way too much for TeamSnap to do by itself, or TeamSnap in HomeCourt, or TeamSnap in 10 companies. So I am, and we've been working on this, and others in the industry are as well. I envision a world in which everything works together. We started to do this in a small way with HomeCourt. We have, we've made, they're called APIs. We've made the key part of our software that allows different elements of our software to talk to other parts. We've made those APIs, application programming interfaces, public, so that external companies like HomeCourt and others can connect to our platform, so that we may not be able to do everything, but in combination with other companies that connect to us, we can offer a rich solution for those that are involved in sports.
As you talked about, a broad community engaged with your app.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously one of our biggest partnerships is with the NBA. And, we have a variety of different ways that we work with them. But one of the things that we talked about in terms of accessibility and opportunity, and I personally am very excited about, is our work around talent discovery. And so one of the things we've done with them recently, and this is before COVID, we actually announced this experience in February during the All-Star game, which was an experience called NBA Global Scout. So it's been running for, I think at this point, almost 6-7 months. And the goal here was to provide basically an experience on HomeCourt where we can help, kids who, again, have the potential, again, back to the idea that talent is distributed and opportunity is not, to really find a pathway to find other opportunities so that they can really reach their potential. And so before, usually what the NBA would have to do is, host a variety of different events in a variety of different countries to kind of identify talent in person. And so what we're able to do is really take the experience that they put together, again, at an event like the NBA Draft Combine, and make that, again, completely virtual and accessible on an app like HomeCourt.
So thanks, guys, for this incredible conversation. And it's very clear that both TeamSnap and HomeCourt are true leaders in the sports technology space. And we're proud to call you partners in our effort to build America's new state of play. As we look to the future, I want to hear from you as leaders in the space. What's your advice to other sports technology companies on how to ensure that we have equitable access for all kids to have quality play? Dave, let's start with you.
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts come to mind. First of all, we're capitalists here, right? We founded companies partly to make money, but I think we have the opportunity to have an impact beyond just financial in our communities. And there are a couple of ways in which we can do this. One, I've referred repeatedly to the fact that, our mission is to take the work out of play. That doing so in and of itself makes it easier for everyone to participate in sports, because the overhead associated with managing and communicating and all that is diminished greatly. And we've started that mission, but we're not the only ones who are going to contribute to making life a lot easier for those involved in sports. The second is to look for ways to reach out to those who aren't playing sports or don't seem to have the opportunity to do so. Part of the reason I'm so passionate about my company and what we're doing is because sports made a big difference in my personal life. This is personal for me. It taught me lots of valuable lessons. I won't get into all of them in this conversation, but I will say I viewed it as a tremendous life experience. And I'm just a normal sports guy. I didn't play professional sports. I didn't play in college, but nonetheless, I benefited tremendously from being involved in sports. I think everyone in society should have that opportunity. And TeamSnap is certainly doing its part in combination, in partnership with Project Play, but through other means to promulgate that goal. And I would urge everyone involved in the sports tech community to strive to do the same thing.
Yeah. So well said. I think I kind of take it in two ways. One is just on a pure technology front. Dave and I, we both been working in technology for a really long time. And, one of the knocks against us in our industry is that we get too into our own stuff.
A few years more in my case, I suspect.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But one of the things that's always been true is sometimes we get too in love with the technology, the technical aspects of it, and not the experience it delivers to customers. And so I think one of the things that we're really proud of here at HomeCourt, talked about accessibility and even just general broadband internet Wi-Fi access. One of the things we did in our app very early on was to make sure that you could use a lot of parts of the app offline. And so that, and I think this is important for a variety of reasons. In basketball, like you might be on a playground shooting in a hoop and you want to track your shots, and you might not have a good connection there. So just in that instance, you want the app to be able to work. But in more generally, it's just thinking about things that way, thinking about all the different, use cases that could, create friction in an experience. And how do we, again, that's innovation as well. Like we spend a lot of time optimizing the app so you can work offline and store, data efficiently, and then upload it back once you get back online so you don't lose anything. One of the communities that we've been working very closely with is like, wheelchair basketball communities, and how like they've found a even more engaging way to compete, virtually now that they're together. They're forming their own communities on HomeCourt. And so, I think just thinking about, again, accessibility as much as possible. And we have a lot of work to do there as well. But I think that's a really important and accessibility as part of your design, not just like an afterthought. So on a development point of view, I think that's, something I hope we see more and more work around. And the second part is, and we talked about this a little earlier, it's, adopting technology is not easy. There's a learning curve, especially, I used to work in education. My wife is a teacher, and, I even have trouble picking up new stuff now. And we work in this space all the time. And so, and I think just remembering that the people who are going to benefit the most from this also need the most guidance and the most support. And don't forget about that. And as as elegantly as we can design an experience, there's still like a certain matter of education involved. And don't forget that part, right? And sometimes we get frustrated when I thought that was obvious. It's never obvious. When you're trying to change behavior or learn something new, just like you're learning a new language. And I think really important for us, if we really want to bring everybody along, we can't just think about early adopters. We can't just think about people who, have a good quote unquote grasp of technology. We really need to think about everybody, especially in different countries as well. There are a lot of different things to think about, but I think, again, just thinking about those two sides playing, how to design for accessibility, but also think about the right onboarding processes, and that it's not a one-time thing. They go through your experience and now they know how to do it. It's like, it's never that easy. Reinforcing those things, teaching versus just telling, I think is, a big part of how we can help move the industry forward and just make our technologies more and more useful for more and more people.
Dave and Alex, thanks for a great conversation. And more importantly, thanks for the entrepreneurial spirit you bring to our work. Today's session's focused on coaches, and this afternoon's workshops will give coaches tips to embrace their role in holistic athlete development, from how to coach social emotional skills to how to design for youth with disabilities. If you aren't able to join us this afternoon, don't worry. We've got lots of tools and resources available in our event app, as well as on the Project Play website. In particular, we encourage you to check out the Calls for Coaches resource page at as.pn/calls for coaches. Today, we're releasing some incredible new material, including our coaching SEL kernels, developed in partnership with the AYSO lab at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. These are specific activities and exercises for coaches to build social-emotional skills in their youth athletes. We also have a new survey tool co-developed with Resident Education that assesses coaches' behaviors aligned with social-emotional skill development. And finally, we've adapted our Calls for Coaches framework to help coaches design a more inclusive environment. And there's more of the 2020 Project Play Summit tomorrow here at 11 a.m. Eastern with our final day featuring conversations with best-selling author and youth sport parent Michael Lewis, Brian Hainline, Chief Medical Officer of the NCAA, and USOPC CEO Sarah Hirschland, plus voices from many athletes, including 7-time Paralympic gold medalist and Project Play champion Tatiana McFadden. Hope to see you tomorrow.